Good afternoon, dear guests and those who watch us online. The topic is standard submission deadline for public procurement for the provision of services of the independent and the national audit of Ukroboronprom is up. What's next? Our guests are Volodymyr, Ohryzko, co-chairman of the Independent Defense Anti-Corruption Committee, Draho, member of the Independent Defense Anti-Corruption Committee, Olena, Trehub, Secretary General of the Independent Defense Anti-Corruption Committee, and Mykhailo, Zhurovskyi, Chairman of the Ukroboronprom Supervisory Board. Welcome. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I am a co-chair of the committee, and I'm here on behalf of the committee to provide general comments, a few words about anti-corruption and independent committee of defense. It appeared 2 years ago in order to help Ukrainian state to minimize negative consequences of corruption activity that happens in the sphere of defense. And we are a team of Ukrainian and foreign independent experts. We gathered in order to overcome these negative things what we face. We identified our strategy and we focus on the issues of the Ministry of Defense because we have 6 members on the committee and a small secretariat, and we could not address all the issues of security. That's why we addressed the key issue, the activity of the Ministry of Defense and the structures that belong to this area. And of course, we focus our activity on Ukroboronprom because this is a concern that is a key for the provision of our forces with proper equipment. And this is one of the key elements of the whole structural policy of Ukraine in the sphere of defense industry. And we established a good contact. We started to speak about the things that our committee could help to resolve, but we faced evident problems. It happened so that this concern had a managing board, but they didn't have proper body for this establishment of the strategy, for the control of the activity of the management of the company, and this body should be a supervisory board. And without this body, it was impossible to continue cooperation with the concern, because that would put us in the same boat with those people who are corrupt. That's why we said that we stop the work, because we want to work with the proper conditions that are appropriate for civilized business. And I believe that this demarch really worked. And quickly they formed the supervisory board, and we are really glad. And this is not only my personal opinion, but also this is an opinion shared by the whole committee. We are glad that prominent politician and scientist, academician Zhurovskyi became the chairman of this board, and he has a really good reputation. He is the person who wants to do everything possible in order that this concern and this area of activity, that it becomes European. And we moved ahead in another direction due to our influence and even pressure. We came to conclusion together that without independent international audit the activity of the concern won't be successful. And what is important that this signal was heard in the concern and by the government, and now we have positive result that show that we move ahead in this area. And we had technical issues, and we didn't have proper results, and we decided to continue this activity until September. And we believe that during these several months we will find people who will deal with this difficult issue, because we are speaking about 120 enterprises, and we hope to move forward in this direction. Now I would like to give the floor to Olena, and she will provide the floor to other speakers, and I would like to sum up. I believe that in this area we established the right way of for our work, and we should solve many issues. And we had a meeting with the group of parliamentarians, and we've discussed these issues with them, and there were some issues raised, and we should coordinate them further. But on the whole, we are on the right path, and as a committee, we are glad, and we are ready to promote this in order that this concern, this field of activity became really European. Thank you, Volodymyr. And now I would like to give the floor to Mykhailo Zhurovskyi, who heads the Supervisory Board of Ukroboronprom, and he is going to tell us about the role of the Supervisory Board in the reforms in Ukroboronprom, and in this operation, we call it the International Independent Audit. Good afternoon. I'm grateful for this invitation in order to speak with the representatives of NECO and the representatives of mass media, and the opportunity to answer those questions to Supervisory Board. And I would like to mention that from the very start, when the membership was renewed, and you know about the management of Ukroboronprom, we had a task to start the reforms that were long awaited, and those reforms that should have been implemented. Ukroboronprom enterprises, at the start we had 134 enterprises at Ukroboronprom, and the enterprises did everything possible in the years of this conflict in the East. And on the whole, Ukroboronprom as a concern and the network of enterprises, they did everything possible, and they completed the most important task that we faced in 2014. And I would like to thank those people who really completed these tasks, the management of Ukroboronprom and the heads of the enterprises, and to 80,000 workers who work at these enterprises, about the new stage of reform. These reforms, they are really important. A lot of enterprises, they were managed through Soviet model. This is the tough vertical of power, and it prevented these enterprises from being efficient in economic conditions. And this factor and other factors, they brought us to some system, a number of actions. The main are such actions. All enterprises were analyzed, and some enterprises were identified that those that didn't work in the defense sphere. They belonged to concern, but they worked in a civil sphere. We had about 1/4 of these enterprises, so about 30 enterprises. And according to recommendation of the supervisory board, they will be brought under the management of the state asset fund, and they will work outside the defense sector. And another important step, this is the creation of so-called clusters. So these are the groups of enterprises that act in similar areas. So it should be done in order to increase opportunities of separate clusters to create more complex issues, to solve more complex tasks, because when some enterprises were not able to resolve some problems and to complete some important tasks because they didn't have much resources. Now we have 5 clusters: aviation, tank, ship, and precise weapon and radio location sector. So this process is still ongoing, and they form now these clusters in this new system. The enterprises, they are not deprived of their autonomy as legal entities. As previously, they will act as independent enterprises with all their opportunities, with all their connections, international and domestic partners. But when we are speaking about coordination of their actions and implementation of difficult, complex projects, here their resources will get united. Another important step for us is to allow separate enterprises to involve additional investment resources. Now, in condition of economic crisis, many enterprises are in difficult economic condition. That's why the decision was taken and about corporatization, and this is process headed by the state asset fund, and this will allow to introduce investment funds in order to increase capabilities of such enterprises. This is the process that was passed by developed countries while they were reforming defense sector, and Ukraine, with some delay, is also moving in this direction. And also, as Mr. Ohryzko said, this is international audit, and this is a very important issue of reform. And Ukraine and Ukroboronprom, as a big system, they are in the state of big mistrust, because in the country there are cases of corruption. But I believe that here we have also some propaganda attack on Ukraine and on defense sector, because this is one element of hybrid war. In order to show us in the world as a failed state, this is an attack on Ukraine and on those institutions that defend the country. So they are blamed of corruption. Of course, there is corruption, but I believe that the scope of this corruption, they are really not so big as they say. So So what is the real level? And I believe that it really exists in the concern, maybe in some separate enterprises. So in order to understand this, we should carry out this international audit, and together with NECO, we started this process of unblocking of this project, this big international project, and to form proper procedures. And this proposal of NECO, with participation of experts from Ukraine, United States, so the rules were corrected because this is international audit and it should have three lots. The first one, the strategic audit, second audit, legal audit, and the third one is financial audit. So this financial audit was formulated as an overview, and a financial overview, and this didn't comply with the legislation of Ukraine, and NECO developed a new approach to introduce into legislative field this component, to bring it to legal field, in order that this financial audit fully correspond to legislation. In the result, changes were introduced, and the tender committee of Ukroboronprom accepted them, and the procedure was launched. And application from audit companies was made. But when the companies knew about these changes that were introduced, they came up with a proposal to continue this process. And the first deadline for applications was the 10th of June, and when the companies started to prepare the materials for submission, it appeared that they won't manage to do this to this date, and that's why in the proposal of the known world audit companies, they came up with the proposal, and they sent their proposals in written form to Ukroboronprom. And this deadline now 28th of September. So in this time, these companies provided some recommendations, and the rules established that there should be experts from. So the experts should have MBA, because not all experts have this level, and they decided to decrease this requirement, and there were some other issues that were changed, and there are other actions that are implemented by the concerning reform of the whole system, but I won't go into detail because of the time limit. So later, if you have questions, I will answer them.
And right now, I would like to ask the international member of NECO, Mr. Draho, to express developments around Ukroboronprom and its transformation.
Thank you, Olena. It works. Good afternoon. So when NECO started 2 years ago, we naturally looked around to see what are the biggest problems where we can assist Ukrainian state, and we, of course, one of the first ones was the Ukroboronprom, and we started, let's say, communication with the company or the concern right away. There were ups and downs, but finally we managed to agree after, let's say, a breakdown in December. This spring we managed to agree. The reason why we decided, or we were pushing so hard for such an audit, it was very simple. We saw that, let's say, the whole concern of Ukroboronprom is organized in the principles which in the modern world are passed already. So we said, well, Ukroboronprom as a state-owned enterprise, it needs standards which are there out in the developed world for the state-owned enterprises. And we explicitly we were having in mind the OECD standards of good governance in state-owned enterprises. So finally we got a decision now in May, and what was described, the three lots of the audit. The first one for us is the most important one, which is basically dealing with governance, and which will also enable future reorganization or transformation of Ukroboronprom. This lot will deal with the, let's say, the current ways of governance, current cooperation, current relations between the entities which are part of Ukroboronprom, because in such a way we will be really able to, well, not we, the auditors will pool and put together the information which will give very good grounds for those who will have to make a decision what will be the future way of Ukroboronprom. The second lot is the illegal due diligence, and the third one, the financial one. Those two are very clear, so I don't have to spend too much time on that. There are three reasons why we want to enter this audit. The first one, of course, is to, let's say, to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of Ukroboronprom, either in the current form or any other form afterwards. Second one, we wanted to make Ukroboronprom attractive for foreign investors. And the third one, and this is our genuine interest, is, let's say, to decrease the conditions and possibilities for corruption in which are there in such a huge conglomerate of different companies. So now we are there. Decision has been made. What we are trying to do now is we are trying to motivate, let's say, the best world auditing companies to apply for this enterprise. And when I say the best, I don't necessarily mean the biggest, because what we will be looking for, and that we have agreed yesterday with Ukroboronprom, what we need is we need the best companies. We don't necessarily need the biggest ones. But we are not naive. We know there will be two big problems which we will have to deal with in the future. The first one will be the fact that Ukroboronprom is the military facility. So many of its parts or information related to its production is covered by different types of secrecy. So we will have to find a way how the auditors will be enabled to produce really, let's say, comprehensive report, despite the fact that a lot of information is secret one. And the second one is who should see the final report when the report will be prepared. So fortunately, yesterday, and I must say I have been very surprised positively when we heard our colleagues from Ukroboronprom saying that the public part of the audit report will be widely disseminated, which is good, because usually auditing reports are maintained in the, let's say, in the premises of the companies which ordered audit reports. And of course, the secret parts of the report will have to remain secret. Of course, secret for the general public, also having in mind the specific situation in which Ukraine is right now. But the relations which we have now for sure will enable us to find solutions which will ensure that secrecy will not be a problem for the auditors. And second, that the public part of the report will really be accessible widely, which would also enable, let's say, much greater transparency of this exercise. Plus, it will enable also Ukroboronprom to gain or regain trust, which has slowly disappeared or, let's say, decreased in the following years. We know that we are just at the start of this exercise. We just made an agreement that we will do it. There are so many open questions of a practical nature. How much it will cost, how long it will take, which auditing company should do it, how much should be in the engagement of the Ukrainian auditors. But all those issues, I think, are less important and doable after we made the first one, which is that there will be independent international audit.
Дякую, пане Кос. Я, як генеральний секретар...
Thank you very much. I am as a general secretary general of this organization. I would like to say that the role of NACO, the role of Independent Defense Anti-Corruption Committee, that is the part of TI. We are independent organization, and our presence in this process allowed to provide some transparency of the process, the search for auditors, negotiation processes, and also this process of audit and Transparency International and the NACO, together with Supervisory Board, we are involved in this process, and this changes to a large degree the rules that they were at the end of 2017. And I would like to note about the role of Supervisory Board and to state that when there was no Supervisory Board, this audit, it couldn't have trust of society. And also in TI, and the results of this audit and the recommendations of corrective measures, if it is taken by management of Ukroboronprom, this won't resolve the issue of overcoming corruption risks. But when we now speak about the creation of audit committee that will be at the Supervisory Board and will be above the management of Ukroboronprom, that will be more transparently communicate about the intermediate and final results of the audit, that will also involve in external auditors, international partners, and public organizations such as NACO. And this will be an unprecedented step, and this international audit should be on this grounds. And I would like to once again say that the conditions of the audit and how they changed consultancy and how this Ukroboronprom should work. Also, they have the assessment of corporate governance of Ukroboronprom according to standards of the OECD standards, and this assessment envisages that consultant will see the cooperation of the Supervisory Board with management and what access the Supervisory Board has to documents and how it influences the decision-making, whether Supervisory Board is independent, whether the members of the board cooperate among themselves. So these are the standards of OECD, and these standards that are missing in Ukroboronprom, they will be provided, and there will be proper support for the implementation. So this is the innovation that we introduced after the 12th of May, when we updated the tender documentation. And of course it is important to have this third lot. First, this was the overview, financial overview and diagnostics, and now we turned it into specific forensic review of, and 3 fiscal years will be reviewed for all the concerned enterprises, and they will have full inventory of these enterprises. And it was said that we do not have access to all enterprises because some of them are in occupied territories, and 30 of them were brought under supervision of the Fund of State Property. So these innovations, they are important. These enterprises have never seen these audits at all. They do not have financial reports that correspond to international standards. So we will do it during 2 years, and this will be a big reform of state defense sector. So I'm going to stop here, and if our speakers don't have final remarks, I would like to ask our audience for questions. Maybe you have questions or comments, please. Ruslan Kachuk, the Ministry of Defense newspaper. So about the international audit and its influence on the defense and security sector. Who do you ask? Who should answer this question? Volodymyr. Okay. So I'm a diplomat. I'm not from the military. But I would like to explain, and this issue is really fair, but in our conditions. So there is some sort of secrecy. And this issue is really expanded. If we compare Ukrainian standards of secrecy and international standards, we will see that we are leading in the world in this sphere. At the Ministry of Defense, they recognize that many things that they believe a secret, these things are not secret at all. So we cooperate with Ukroboronprom, and we analyze this secrecy, and we provide recommendations to Mr. Poltorak how to act in this sector. So about Ukroboronprom, so we've discussed this topic with many experts, and I believe we found an understanding that in each separate case we will search for legal instruments that will allow, from one side, to analyze all that is necessary for international audit, and from the other side, not to disclose commercial secrets or scientific achievements of our concern, because here there can be some potential attempts to look over horizon. So the balance should be found, and I believe that international auditors, that we will have good, fair specialists, and if some would like to see what is not allowed, they will be told not to do so. So, thank you, Volodymyr. I would like to specify, and maybe I will give the floor to Mykhailo then. So, when NATO took decision that we should help and to overcome these corruption risks for Ukroboronprom, we believed so, because a lot of state orders, they are implemented by Ukroboronprom, and we see journalist investigations that sometimes some prices are increased without any grounds, or the lack of quality appears. So the system should be optimized. It should be made better. So our forces, they should get from the enterprises that are now under umbrella of Ukroboronprom, they should get more quality products that is cheaper and on competitive basis. And we do it for our defense potential, for the defense potential of Ukraine, to have our security at high level. And Mykhailo, if you would like to add something, please do. I agree with what Volodymyr Stanislavich said, and with your opinion as well, that if we will be transparent for society, we will have more efficiency, and we will provide state money for the needed types of weapons for the needs of Ukraine, and Ukroboronprom and the level of the security of the state, that they will improve, and about more specific answer to this question, because your question was too general. Thank you. Sergei Gurits, Director of Information and Agency Defense Express. I had an illusion that we replaced this notions of fighting corruption and the carrying out of this audit. So we want to increase the defense capabilities. So you're saying that there are three components of this audit. And at the same time, the most important, if we are speaking about the development, is the technical overview. And this sector is missing. So what about the technological component, whether the audit will take this into account? If we have only legal and financial audit, we have accounting chamber for this and state structures that carry out this audit for free. What is so unique? Why should we pay this 130 million hryvnias? Whether we really need it, maybe we have other ways how to provide this audit. So these are my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Sergei. So, you know, these are the most important questions, I believe, about further development of the concern of the system of security of Ukraine. What we want. First of all, of course, we want to prevent any corruption risks. This is right, and this is important for us. Why? Because being in the state of this hybrid war, when there are condemnation of Ukrainian corruption, and this is one of the elements of the attack on Ukraine, as a result, it decreases the trust of our international partners. And if we look at the level of investment in the economy of Ukraine, it decreases during, we had 36 and now we have 18 billion. So international investments, they are decreasing. The level of international investments should be much, much higher than our reserves. So the main task of this international independent audit is to get the answer. What is the real level of corruption in Ukraine in this segment, in Ukroboronprom? So this is really important. So, should we pay this money for audit, such a big sum? We believe that the trust is the trust can increase dramatically the level of foreign investment, and this will be not $11 billion per year, but, for example, 180 or 200 billion. We believe that we should carry out such an audit. This issue is not narrowly professional. This is broad political issue. So why we are speaking exclusively about financial audit and about corruption component for Ukraine? Strategic and technological audit are really important for Ukraine, and we need strategic consultancy from leading Israeli companies, because the armored forces and the defense area of Israel, they went through reforms recently and went through restructuring, and this was done by known Israeli companies, and they took part in this restructuring. And you know about the situation in that country, and their forces are similar to Ukrainian armed forces, and the situation is similar. That's why strategic audit that would be provided by strategic consultancy, how to better build and restructure our defense complex, how to avoid mistakes, that would be really important for us, as well as a technological overview, technological component of the strategic audit. This is envisaged in the first lot. So I would like to say this to you. So about the companies that will carry out the audit. Do these companies have experience of technological audit? Because otherwise this will be senseless. So this is one part of my question. And the second one, now we are speaking about Ukroboronprom, the development of the defense sector, and we have triangled the Ministry of Defense, Ukroboronprom, and the Ministry of Industrial Development. So now we analyze only Ukroboronprom, and we do not broaden this to other entities, so this will limit us, and I agree with you completely about this. So it is better. So we have authoritative people here who really know about this and can provide answer to this. I agree that if such authoritative international partners, if they show that they want to carry out this audit, we believe that we should speak about the military and defense complex on the whole. In this, we would put a question about the level of trust to the country and to the whole defense sector. I don't know why, I don't know the reasons. Maybe my colleagues will add about this, why it happens so that all the attention is brought to Ukroboronprom. Yes, this is a very important entity, 130 enterprises, and if we answer about the level of corruption there and whether it is really so that our opponents say, so maybe in the result the country will have benefit from this, but not on the scope we wanted to see it in our country. I agree with you completely about it, and I feel that we have our national institutions that could carry out such research. And $5 million, this is about 50% of the new system for satellite system for Ukraine, and this is the price of the audit. So the big question, what we will have on the result. So we want to return the trust, and we want to increase the investments. We want to increase them dramatically. So the Supervisory Board will do everything possible in order to help on this.
So first on the audit, you see, there is no audit which should be tailor-made to the products of the company. So what I'm saying is the auditor they don't have to be experts in the military technology, because they will not assess technology. There is no such thing as direct technological audit. But what all auditors in the world do, and this is what will also be done by these auditors, is that they will assess how much money, I will simplify it, but this is basically the idea, how much time is spent on the production of the, let's say, products, how costly, effective this is, and in which time, let's say, the Ukrainian military can get the products. So they will do everything to increase the, as I said, efficiency and effectiveness of Ukroboronprom. But that, of course, means that technological issues will have to be dealt with by somebody else, not the auditors. The auditors will tell that those and those companies in the framework of Ukroboronprom are not doing well, that the money spent on them is not giving us any value. So somebody will have to make a decision what to deal with those companies, either to change the technology or to simply abolish them. So this will be the most important part, and this is the first strategic part which has been mentioned. So the management board and the supervisory board of Ukroboronprom will be able to see which parts of the company are the healthy ones, which part of the company can be improved, and which parts of the company cannot be improved. And on the last one, why only Ukroboronprom, why not only also the Ministry of Defense and the other ministry? You see, what we're trying from the beginning here is to emphasize that Ukroboronprom, despite the fact that it is a state-owned company, it is still a company. So it has to be run by the management board, supervised by supervisory board. State, as the owner, has, of course, some rights. But we cannot interfere into, let's say, strategic, some might say political decisions of the country, in which way the military production will go. So this cannot be part or subject of auditing, because this is subject of political decisions and such a subject of political responsibility. So once again, we are trying to emphasize that Ukroboronprom is state-owned enterprise, a company, which is, of course, it's special because it's state-owned, and second, because it's producing military equipment, but it is still the company. And we will try with this audit to produce the basic, let's say, the basis for the decisions on how to improve the functioning of the company. And this is it.
I will pick up. Я хочу продовжити думку.
I would like to continue and continue with the opinion of my colleague, Draho. Sergey, you've mentioned about the triangle, and we've discussed with our parliamentarians, and we have such a practice. Each time we carry out such informal discussions with those who are interested in this topic. And yesterday and today in the morning they said that maybe we will speak not about triangle but about four sides, and there will be even a structure that will have some responsibilities, some new entity, and maybe this will complicate things even more. And I support my colleagues. Here we are speaking about the rules of corporate governance. The state shows direction, strategy, and real work is done by concern, and how to do this work more efficient. This is the issue for supervisory board and management. So I believe that here we should not confuse these things that are important and interrelated, but they are of different levels. So I would like to briefly add State Audit Service. It verifies enterprises of Ukroboronprom, but it doesn't have opportunity to provide such recommendations and proposals concerning corrective actions that are adopted by international standards that could be seen and viewed seriously by investors. Mr. Zhurovskyi mentioned about it, in order to create joint ventures. And also State Audit Service cannot help all those companies to introduce the standards of international reporting, and they cannot order this audit for themselves. So in Ukroboronprom, what amount of companies order such audits? Are they able to do this? Only 5 companies can do this, only 5. The rest didn't have this. So their capabilities will increase to this, due to this audit, as well as their attractiveness at the international level. So now the next question, Alexei Botushak, Ukrainian Truth. I have a question to Mr. Zhurovskyi. It is known that Petro Poroshenko appointed you to supervisory board. So who proposed your candidature to the president, and did you have some interviews, and with whom, and did you get the access to state secret? So the access to state secret, I have it for many years, because in KPI, the technical university, we took part in the creation of many.
Тому я думаю, що ми тут не дуже повинні змішувати ті речі, які важливі, які безумовно взаємопов'язані, але все-таки які є трошечки різнопорядковими. Дякую.
Я би також ще коротко хотіла додати. Державна аудиторська служба дійсно перевіряє підприємства Укроборонпрому, але у неї немає здатності забезпечити, наприклад,
Considered, I was invited to the National Defense and Security Council meeting, and I was asked whether I agree for this appointment. And second time, I was invited to the President of Ukraine and the heads of the Security and Defense Council. They were the members of this council. They were present, and I was informed about this position. So, if you want to continue, please. Yes, we have 3 minutes. So, maybe I didn't hear this. You said about 2 years for the audit. Do you understand that in 2 years, Ukroboronprom will transform into clusters? And I believe there are big chances that each of the cluster will have their separate activities in foreign markets, so they will transform rapidly. So maybe this results of the audit won't be appropriate. How to avoid this risk? Sergei, to whom is this question? Who do you ask? So I agree with you. So the changes are really rapid in the world, in the global world, and in Ukraine, especially in this component of security. So maybe that in 2 years there will be new alliances, new international world alliances, and our companies may join them. So this is the truth. But at the same time, I believe to a large extent, there is a sense, there is a political context, whether we are a country of total corruption that is always presumed being corrupt. Do we have prospects to be civilized, to be recognized by the world community? So I believe that there is a political component. And personally, I see how these anti-corruption institutions are created, and having some data such as this is the data of the World Center of Information at the Technological University. So this is the share of GDP in percentage. The part concerning corruption in 2012-2013, this was about 14% from GDP, and now it is about 8%. So the vector is heading for decrease. So anti-corruption institutions are created in the country. They started their work. You see the number of detentions of some officials. We all say that now anti-corruption court is not working and no one was jailed. But even the detention and the loss of reputation is also a powerful pressure on the overall situation, positive influence. So the vector is heading to the lowering, the trend is lowering. So we need time. This is not one-time action. We cannot just wake up tomorrow and see non-corrupt country. But we are moving in a proper direction. So your question, Sergei, is really difficult. We do not know what will happen in 2 years. but our integration into developed world, it will increase. And this integration, this cooperation and signed contracts with authoritative partners from developed nations of the world, and this will bring us to conditions, and these enterprises won't act in a corrupt way. And this is absolutely possible. And I agree with my colleague. And for example, we do not say that we will have stages of the audit starting September and for 2 years, and we will have intermediate reporting, and we are moving in this direction, and we will be able to change the structure in management and governance. And I believe that 2 years, this is the deadline. Yes, this is long, but these intermediary stages, they will be really of use. We will have some intermediary results.
So I don't see, there are only two solutions possible. First, that there will be a high level of cooperation and coordination will be needed between the auditors and the Ukroboronprom. And second, auditors will audit Ukroboronprom in any form. That means if the form of Ukroboronprom will stay as it is now, they will audit what is there now. If it will be clusterized, they will audit the clusters, and the results will be, let's say, given on the basis of their assessment without having regard to the form of the Ukroboronprom. So it doesn't matter how many times Ukroboronprom will change. When auditors will be there, they will assess what they will see, and they will say it is good or it is bad. Of course, it would be strange that things would change and then auditors would come in and say it is not good.
Дякую. Я ще би з вашого дозволу хотіла уточнити, що 2 роки це дійсно йдеться.
So 2 years, as Volodymyr said, and Draho supported his idea. So we are speaking about the process. If we are speaking about financing, so this preliminary assessment from auditors, they say 6 months to 1 year. So this part will be done quicker when before the independence of clusters. So time is up. If you want to have final remarks. If no, we will end our press briefing. Thank you, everyone.